I've never had any problems with the police. Every time I get a ticket or pulled over, I'm very respectful. None of those involved in this story have criminal backgrounds, and I just graduated a large university with a criminal justice pre-law degree. My two best friends, Ali and Lena, are generally very nice people. At the time, we were newly 21, and they're fairly attractive young women. I have the good personality. We all live within 5 minutes walking distance of each other's homes, and the town itself that we live in is just under 1 square mile. It's one of those towns where everyone knows each other and each other's business. We jokingly used to say that you could literally do anything you wanted there because we had never, ever seen a cop, and most people had never even heard of our town. The college semester had just ended, so we settled into our usual summer routine. I would get off work waitressing late nights at a town over, and I would drive to Ali's, have a beer or two, hang out and go home. If I ever did have more than 2 beers, I would walk home, or I slept over there so I could get drunk. One of the first nights of summer, I was leaving Ali's at around 1 AM. I turn onto my street, and I notice this car parked in this weird lot, which is essentially just grass and dirt, only a couple of houses down from mine. As I drive by, I see that it's a cop. Whoa, never seen one of those in this town before, so it was actually a little weird. I remember texting Ali and being all, "There's a cop on my street. Weird, right?" I got home, went to bed, and forgot all about it. I went to Ali's with Lena almost every single night. We don't have many other friends, or money to go to a bar, honestly. Every night I would drive home, the cop would be in that weird lot. I always saw the shadow of a guy in the car, but it's dark, usually after 1 AM, and I'm not about to stop and see who it is. He was never there during the day. One night, following the same routine, I drove by the lot, and as I did, I saw the cop car's headlights flip on. The car whipped out of the lot and sped up so close to the back of my car that I honestly thought it was going to be hit. Immediately, I'm terrified. He is dangerously close to my car. He flips on his red and blue lights, but at that point, I'm about to turn into my driveway. I turn in, and I turn off my car, but I don't exit my vehicle. I honestly thought I was being pulled over in my own driveway. I'm scrambling for my license, nervous as hell, when I see the cop just waiting at the top of my driveway, lights turned off at this point. He sits there for a minute, and drives off, way over the speed limit, on a sleepy side street. I'm scared for a few reasons. I had, at the time, a very distinct car. My lovable PT Cruiser with a red racing stripe to ensure I never got laid. The cop now knew my car. If I had the same routine every night, and he was just a little observant, he would see my car pull into my driveway, always after 1 AM. I also wasn't doing anything illegal. I was shaken, but decided to forget it. He was either being a dick, or I'd just forgotten to put a blinker on, and he decided to let me go. It was all very whatever, until it happened every night afterwards. For a week straight, every time I turned down my street after Ali's, the cop flipped on his lights, rode my car's bumper to my driveway, and sped off. It's clear at this point he's just being a dick, but I don't get the point. I was scared, honestly, but my friends always turned it into a joke, so I guess I did too. The element that made it so hard to comprehend this situation was that this was a cop, and I was younger, more shy than I am now, and I really didn't know how to address this issue. This cop did have one distinct quality: his brakes. They were the squeakiest brakes I have ever heard in my life. You could hear him coming around a turn from across the state. He earned himself a nickname: The squeaky brakes cop. This harassment happened for a week. By the third week of summer, squeaky brakes was gone. No one tailed me home, all was well, until my friends got their first taste of old squeaky brakes. Ali and I were sitting on her front porch as she smoked a cigarette. It was about 5 p.m, and we were making plans for the night, which mostly consisted of drinking on her porch alone. We were in the middle of laughing about something when I heard them. The squeaky brakes. I said something along the lines of, "I bet this is the cop coming around the corner. You'll finally see who's been bothering me." I was right. Ali laughed a little as he drove past her house. She agreed he had the squeakiest brakes in the world. He slowed down as he drove by, and then disappeared out of sight, but we heard him coming back, and you could tell he was driving fast. He slammed on his squeaky fucking brakes and stopped at the end of Ali's driveway. This time, he got out of the car. He was far enough away that if I ever ran into him in the street, I wouldn't be able to ID him. He had those aviator sunglasses on him, his little cop hat, the gun, the badge, the uniform, the works. But he didn't speak. He just stood there at the end of the driveway, hands on his hips, looking at us. I mentioned earlier I was a criminal justice pre-law major, and my friends consider me their go-to free lawyer, even though I'm obviously not. But I do know just a little better what to say to cops and what my rights are. Ali whispered something to me along the lines of, "What the fuck's going on?" So I decided, whatever, we have to address this, and I called him out. "Can we help you, officer?" He didn't speak for a minute, but eventually he speaks up. "What are you young ladies up to? Smoking weed out of that funny-smelling cigarette?" It was surreal. Who even says things like that? I calmly answered, "No, it's just a regular cigarette." He didn't answer, just fucking stared at us. Then he said, so coldly, "Well, if there's no weed up there, why don't you invite me inside so I can check for myself, and we won't have any problems? Pretty girls shouldn't smoke." Problems? Pretty girls shouldn't smoke? Whatever. Now I realize this cop is on a power trip, trying to be intimidating. Ali is clearly nervous, so I do my thing, and I say, "No, officer, that won't be necessary. We were just going inside anyway. There are no issues here, and this is private property. I really hope you have a great rest of your day, though." I literally grab Ali and I pull her inside. I acted cool in front of the guy, but I'm nervous as hell. What's this cop's deal? We watched as he got into his car and left, always hitting those squeaky brakes. Ali texted me that week, saying that squeaky brakes had been circling her house every night. He had stopped following me home, but he had also been circling my house as well. I always heard his brakes leave the end of my street when I was in bed. My bed was on the second floor, directly under this huge window that I always left open that faces the street. I always peeked up when I heard his brakes, and I always saw his car leaving the street. One night, when I was in bed, I heard the brakes, but I didn't hear the car make a turn or drive. It sounded like he had stopped right outside my window. I was tired and used to the cops' nonsense, so I didn't bother looking. I was in the process of trying to sleep, when out of nowhere, my room lights up. Huge, bright light just illuminating my room. Honest to God, my first thought was alien abduction, until rational thoughts replaced it. I sat up in bed, terrified, and I looked out the window to be blinded by the brightest light I have ever seen. It takes me a minute, but I realize it's the fucking spotlight on Squeaky Brake Cop's car. He is literally shining me down with a spotlight in the comfort of my own bedroom. I'm scared, angry, and confused. That to me was too far. I had to do something. It was an invasion of my privacy, and I realized in order to know which room was mine, he had to have been watching my house. The next night, as usual, me and my friends met at Ali's. Lena still hadn't seen the cop. That night, he must have circled once an hour, so Lena finally knew what we were talking about, and finally understood the nickname, Squeaky Brakes Cop. We came to a weird agreement, and the agreement was that we just kind of had to deal with it. It sounds stupid, and I know he had crossed the line in terms of doing his job and abusing his power, but who could we tell? The cops? Honestly, we were terrified if we did, it would get worse. In hindsight, and being a few years older, I'm kicking myself that we didn't. But we were 21, and we didn't want to be involved in anything like that. We can handle this. It's kind of funny. He's got a crush on us. That was the general consensus. The final showdown with the cop happened the last week of summer. All of summer, the cop was always circling, and living in fear of this dude was just an everyday thing. One of the last nights of summer, we got a ton of beer, and decided to get stupid blackout drunk in Ali's yard around a fire pit as a goodbye to summer. We'd been drinking more heavily than normal when we heard the ever-faithful squeak of those brakes. I fucking hate this guy. I really fucking hate that there's nothing else in the world he would rather do than bother us. Ali starts going off on this rant, yada yada. He circles once, and slows as he sees us sitting in the yard. He shines his damn spotlight on us, bright as fuck, and Ali blows a kiss suggestively. He turns it off, and we laugh. He speeds away. We decided to go back inside before he got back. On the way in, I trip, and holding a 30-pack, fall to the ground, and the beers fall everywhere. It's hysterical. We were all laughing, picking them up, and we hear the cop coming back again. He pulls up, but we were all in hysterics because my fall was so funny. He must have seen us just laughing, and I don't know if that's what set him off, but what happened next was terrifying. He rolled down his window, screamed, "Get the fuck inside!" and flipped on his red and blue lights. Fuck. We don't know whether he means inside his cruiser or inside the house, but we obviously opted for the house. The cop sat outside for a minute, and then just sped off. He must have been doing 90 miles an hour on a 25 road. We ran to Ali's room and opened her blinds. He would slow down in front of her house, turn on his lights, and whip off. It seemed menacing and incredibly aggressive. We counted, and he circled her house 38 times. After we deemed it safe, we cuddled, had a few more beers, and fell asleep together. It got to the point of harassment that I did the next best thing to calling the cops. I told my mum. She actually took me seriously, and said in the mornings when she woke up to take our dog for a walk, she always saw a cop hanging out near our driveway, but he was always gone when she got back. This was always around 4 a.m. in the morning. The night we credit to the harassment ending was the night I took a stand. I'm a light sleeper, and it was around 2:30 a.m. when a bright light jerked me from my sleep. The spotlight in my room again. Summer was just about over, and this cop had essentially ruined it for me, and I was done. I got my bearings, and I went to the window. I stood in it, blinds all the way up, until the cop turned off his spotlight. It was a very weird, uncomfortable showdown. I grabbed my phone, turned the flash on, shoved my arm out the window, and yelled down the street, "I really hope you don't mind me taking your picture." I swear to God, I have never seen a car drive faster or peel out quicker. He was gone before my flash was even halfway done going off. He never came back. Later that night, he was sitting outside Lena's house for the first time. He was blocking her driveway. She pulled up next to him and asked him politely to move so she could get home. And he said, "I bet you want to go home." That was the last conversation or experience any of us had with him, and I haven't seen him since. This might not seem too creepy, but it was an unmarked, clearly poorly maintained cop car. He had the lights, the outfit, everything. But it wasn't until after the summer that we realized that maybe this guy wasn't a real cop. And if he was, he really had no respect for his position or how he treats people, and clearly abuses his authority. I still always check when someone with squeaky brakes passes my house. Hi guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. I think it was a particularly good one. I actually meant to post this on my main channel, but it ran a little over 15 minutes, so here we are. Keep sending in your stories to me, and you'll hear from me again very, very soon. Stay spooky, and remember, the best things happen in the dark.